Welcome to the NDIS Property Australia podcast. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi all, welcome to another podcast at NDIS Property Australia. I'm here with a special guest speaker, Rob Maxwell from Melbourne, one of our regular speakers. And welcome today, Rob.
Thanks, Minh. Happy to be here.
Let's talk about the critical, important matter of land supply and land contracts and build contracts in the marketplace in Victoria, Rob. What's the feedback you're getting from your connections down there?
Okay, as in our previous podcast, we talked about how land was very difficult to get. There was a lot more demand versus supply, and the time frames for titling were quite often 6 to 12 months to, if not longer. The latest trend on top of that, because of the fact that land is in such shortage and there are still plenty of buyers, the trend now is that most developers that are selling the land are now making the contracts unconditional. So what that means is you cannot make it subject to finance for the land contract.
So let's talk about how the normal process works around Australia first before we jump to this extreme scenario. So normally an investor, and I'm sure a lot of investors in the past will realise this, you submit an EOI to the land agent. That EOI is also provided to the builder. And within maybe a week or a few days, you get the land contract and the build contract issued to the investor to purchase, in which case they would sign the contracts subject to finance. And that would take probably another few more weeks for the client, the investor, to go to their broker or lender and get pre-approved finance. And most of the time, there might be a delay of that process happening, so they'll request an extension of finance approval, about 2 weeks. And then once the lender approves, then they contact their lawyer, who then contacts the land vendor and the builder to say their finance approved and they were unconditional, in which case they would then pay a deposit for the land contract and the build contract. So that's the normal process, right, Rob?
Correct. That's what traditionally it's been for most.
So now, what is it now again? Do you want to rehash that process again now? The new way.
Now all new land contracts for development sites and estates are being done on a non-conditional basis. So therefore, you can't put that clause in there subject to finance. So you have to provide the deposit on signing the contract, and it might be 5%, in some cases it's 10%. You also may have to provide an expression of interest fee of up to $2,000 to even get the contract sent to you, because the developers want these blocks sold and settled as quickly as possible, and they don't want to have to reissue them to new clients if the previous buyer's finance fell over. So what it means is that clients, in order to enter into a land sale agreement, they're going to have to be very confident that they will be able to secure finance if they need to, or they may have to do the research and talk to their brokers or talk to your company about the likelihood of them getting finance, and then they make that decision to sign the land contract based on the knowledge that they will get the finance. It also shortens the process.
Agreed. The biggest delays in the past year or 2 years has been land developers waiting for clients to get their finance approved, which delays the contracts being executed. And they want the deals happening as quickly as possible. They don't want to waste time waiting for lawyers to get back to them, waiting for them to sign, waiting for the finance to be approved. They don't want all those delays. And hence the reason why they're saying now, cough up the money and sign right now and move ahead. No more time wasting.
Correct. And what's also happening, there's two types of land that you may come across, and we're looking at it as well, is that the resales from investors or buyers that may have bought a block of land a year ago and it was, let's say, 18 months away from titling, they did that on an unconditional basis. Some of them now are realising they can't get the finance, therefore they have to resell the block. But in order to do that, they want the full 10% deposit on the land up front, and also the on-sale contract has to be unconditional as well. So hence why there's no flexibility for resales either.
This is a very interesting time at the moment in the property market, isn't it, Rob? With interest rates going up, lending being harder because of the higher cost of borrowing, the limited number of land available, the concern of builders falling over, and them being very strict with their cash flow, obviously. Also in a rising market or possibly even a falling market, declining market. So all these factors are all coming to play at the same time, and it's becoming very challenging, or if not difficult, for an investor to juggle all these factors all at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. So we're going through a cycle. This has happened before. Over the last 20 or 30 years, there have been instances before where these were the conditions, and then they change. Depending on what happens to the market, we may go back to having subject to finance put into these contract clauses, but right now we don't. And the next trend, which you touched on, builders, and obviously they're having to look at their financial situation and shore up to make sure that their cash flow secure and positive, is that some builders are now also going down the same path, that the actual build contract is unconditional as well. And one of our builders that we're dealing with the NDIS has let us know that this is the case. So again, there's no ability to put subject to finance in those build contracts. There will be other builders out there that will still do it. It's just a personal judgment from that builder in terms of their risk profile as to whether they'll accept the potential for that 1 to 2 month delay for finance to be approved.
It seems like on the news every single night somewhere in Australia on some channel, there's always talk about increasing construction costs. I read an article this morning, I think it was the Guardian News or the Fin Review. It was saying that the supply chain, like 1/4 or 1/3 of all the cargo ships in the world are just sitting around or going through the Chinese ports. And because timber is a very critical part of the construction process, the lag time is 45 weeks for timber coming out of China to go as an export to Australia. And the supply chain issue is the be all and end all of builders here, isn't it, Rob?
It is. And in my meeting the other day with the builder, he was using this as one reason why they can't accept subject to finance clauses anymore, that he has been made aware that concrete, costs of concrete is about to go up another 15% over the next month or two from even where it is now. And it's already gone up 30 to 50% in the last 6 to 12 months. And the other problem we've got in Melbourne, and this will be the same Australia-wide, and again, this is an example of where we are in the cycle, is that governments are starting to spend a lot of money on infrastructure projects. So in Melbourne, think of the tunnel that's being built, the Westgate Tunnel, and also there's the big tunnel and the train system that's being built throughout the city and the eastern and northern suburbs. What that means is that the concrete's in huge demand from big players like these government infrastructure projects. So therefore, the smaller builders that we're all dealing with are finding it hard to get a hold of that concrete, or if they can, they're having to pay a higher price because the demand is so huge. So exactly. It's just a perfect storm of cost increases. Yeah.
And costs are not going to go down either.
Not in the short term. Probably I have a thesis that they may settle in about 6 to 12 months' time, but generally house prices and the cost of building a home don't go down, do they? They just tend to pause.
Go down? What are you talking about?
It just doesn't happen. So therefore, you're investors have to be very confident that their financial situation is strong, that they will get finance, and then they can enter into these contracts with confidence, and they'll still do very well out of it in the long run. It's just sort of a few more hurdles to get across.
Just for the benefit of our listeners, I mean, I'm sure most people know, but I want to reiterate it again. When you apply for finance with a bank for a home loan, that only lasts 90 days, okay? So if you have a block of land which is going to be 6 to 12 months away, the only way to maintain your secure position is to reapply for finance every 3 months. So more applications every 3 months, more valuations every 3 months. You keep on going and going and going until you get to land titles, in which you need to have your finance in place, construction loan in place for your construction of the house, no matter what house it is, be it an apartment, a house, or an SDA house, or whatever. So when someone says, "Why can't I have a finance clause?" Well, the reason being is the titles are so far away that even if you did have a finance clause, it's going to be a moot point because it expires in 3 months anyway. So that's the primary reason why so many off-the-plan house land packages are so often no finance clause associated with it.
Correct. Yeah, you can only banks only going to lend based on the circumstances at the particular time that they make the decision to lend the money, not 12 months before, because things can change, as we know.
So the only risk there is the market risk of interest rates, and also the lending procedures of the banks, lending policies, and also the security of your job. I mean, if you lose your job, then that will affect your home loan application, obviously.
Correct.
So, what advice do you have for our listeners, Rob, given these challenging times with regards to land developers and builders having these tough conditions?
Well, I think the overall result of this will be we may have a bit of a pause in the property market because of interest rates now, but essentially over the next couple of years, it's actually going to lead to prices increasing even further because it's getting harder to get loans. The demand's still there, but clients, once they've made the decision to invest in an investment property, whether it's an NDIS property or a normal one, what this tells you is that you just have to do your research first and make sure that your financial situation is strong enough if you need a loan, that you know you'll be able to get it. You also need to be confident, as you mentioned, that you're going to be able to hold a job and there's no risk of you losing your job in the next 12 to 18 months as well. So it's just more research, more preparation.
Now, understood. Now let's talk about the what ifs, Rob. What if one loses his job? So let's say you put a deposit down of 10% on the land contract, 5% on the build, unconditional, and it's 12 months from titles. And 11 months from now, you lose your job. What are the implications of that moment happening at that time? What is possible as an outcome here?
Well, the worst case scenario is that the bank won't approve the funding that you thought you were going to be able to get.
Correct.
In which case you're potentially forfeiting the deposit you've paid, the 10% or the 5%. In terms of the land contract, you could look to then resell it before you're settling yourself to potentially recoup at least the 10% deposit, and hence why resellers are looking for a 10% deposit paid to them. Now, the one shining light of that, over the last 12 months, land prices have gone up significantly. So anyone who is in this position now probably will be able to get out of it in a reasonable position. The issue will be if land goes down over the next 12 months in value.
Yes, so I want to emphasize what you just said there. If the price of a block goes from $350,000 today up to $450,000 in 12 months' time, I think common sense and our experience has been the land developer is more than happy to release them from the contract.
Yep.
In order for them to sell it for an extra $100,000 more. Now, whether they refund the money or not is another thing, because it's up to the circumstances of the situation. If you went to a developer and said, I've changed my mind, I want out, they'll just say, well, we're taking your 10% deposit and you've lost it. If you say, I've lost my job, my wife's lost her job, we're broke, we have no money, we can't sell it, then in those circumstances, maybe the vendor may release you from your contract and give you a refund. But, as you said, Rob, land developers are all about making money, and if they can sell for a higher profit themselves, there's always going to be fall over contracts all the time in any development or any project.
Yep.
And when those things happen in a rising market, they're happy to take it back back to the market at a high price. It's only, as you said, when the market's going down, the developer or the vendor is looking to protect their backside to take the money and possibly even sue the purchaser for the full amount. That can happen, but it rarely happens.
Correct. So you just have to be aware of all those possibilities going forward, that there are risks involved with any investment decision, even property.
The biggest advice really here from moving forward is do your homework and do your pre-approval. At least with the pre-approval, you know that this lender of yours is willing to lend you in the next 3 months. And that's all you can do, get a pre-approval. And it's a small benefit to know that you're okay, but it's better than nothing, I guess. So with regards to moving forwards, anyone who wants to look at any SDA property investment with NDIS, they should have that money up front, their 5% and 10% deposits for the land and build contracts, the EOI forms, the EOI deposits, and also their SDA certification fee, which the builders normally charge. Some might charge as well. That adds up to about, you were saying, Rob?
Yeah, that could be 120 to 125,000 on an 800,000.
No. I think it's about 70 to 80 grand, somewhere in there. Because at 10% on block of land is 40K, 5% on a build price is going to be 20K there.
Yeah, correct. 60 to 70.
Yeah, it's about 70 grand, give or take a few $1,000. So that's what you're putting down, and that's payable on signing contract. So EOI, contracts issued, signed contract, pay deposit immediately.
You're correct.
So that is the trend, I guess. Rob, any more to add with regards to land and build contracts and the way the market's going in Melbourne specifically?
No, just that we'll obviously monitor it, and we're constantly talking to the builders and the land developers, and if anything changes or we have any improvements or see any opportunities for your investors, we'll get on a podcast and let you all know.
I think the only way around these challenging situations, Rob, is if a buyer sources their own land and the terms and conditions of that land sale is the norm. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's definitely one opportunity. Even better if you've already got a block of land and you've negotiated the deal a year ago and you're now looking at options for build.
Okay. Well, Rob, thanks very much for your time. We're going to get Erin from our team to modify and edit this podcast and put it up and running in the next week or so. But we look forward to coming down to Melbourne again in the next few weeks, probably in 3 weeks' time, I think, to catch up with our first built manufactured house in Melbourne. And we'll take any inquiries from our listeners about their finance situation to give them some general advice. We don't do finance ourselves as a business, but we do see the coming and goings of client applications and which lenders and which brokers to use. So we're happy to refer them on to other people. But I think we're pretty much covered that for now. Thanks, Rob.
All right, thanks, Minh. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure that you are subscribed and following us so that you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this episode with those that can benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.